Welcome back to the Wedding Capture Co., a podcast for wedding photographers and videographers, hosted by myself, Tom, and also my good pal, Chris. In this episode, we have some really exciting news to announce that we are doing our first workshop, so make sure that you tune in long enough to hear about that and how you can get your tickets. And then after we kind of sell you a ticket and tell you how good we are, we're going to jump into the main topic of the episode, which are all the mistakes that we've made in our careers so far. Hopefully that you'll learn something from it and won't fall into those same traps. And we talk about all the things that we did when we started out and wish that maybe we'd have learned from. So this is a real episode to kind of help you learn and not fall into the same mistakes that we did. Let's go.
Hello, welcome back, everybody. How are you all doing? It's episode 25 of the podcast. We're back.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah, we're doing all right on this. We're doing all right. We're pretty consistent.
I was trying to do the metrics on it because obviously technically, we're every other week, right? So if we did one a year, 52 would be a year, but then half of that's 26. So technically, next time we record, that would be our year point. But we're just over a year.
We'll have to get the birthday cake in.
Oh, we should have done. I think it almost is. I think it would have been this week. Maybe this week would have been our year anniversary. But if we say next time,
that's flown by.
Episode 26 is our birthday episode.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Yeah, we'll definitely get a cake and some hats or something.
Oh, things do fly by, don't they? I feel like it's only recently we were talking about the year in summary, and now we've both done our first wedding I've done my first wedding with you.
Yeah.
So.
And we've got another one this weekend as well.
We have got another one this weekend, yeah. So it just so happened that my first two weddings of the year has been with you.
Lucky man. lucky man.
Which obviously it always helps, and obviously it was a nice chilled wedding. It was really relaxed. I would describe it as one that I feel like at this point I'm doing lots of weddings that are 100 plus people. It's crazy. It's different locations. And sometimes it's nice to just turn up to a wedding and know that the couple's chilled out. They don't want anything extreme from you. They're relaxed in themselves, and it's just going to be a really chilled day, especially for the first wedding of the year when you're like, oh, how do I use all of this gear? For me,
you haven't picked it up in a while, and kind of you feel like you're kind of, if you're a horse, you'd be slowly gaining momentum. You're not at full canter just yet. You're kind of, and I think you need, like I say, to be chucked into a multi-location, super stressful, big shot list wedding. Yeah, it's really hard to kind of go into that and go, oh, I need to be creative, or just find your flow. Yeah. Where I think, that wedding we did on the Friday with Katie and Ollie was really, really was a really great example of that. And I found the same, very little shot list, very trusting of just, no, we know what you can do, we've seen what you can do, just do your thing. And I love weddings like that. I think you really do find that you kind of just settle to it a lot more, or you don't. I spend more time can just be and do my job. I'm not worrying about, I have to get this done before that time, or they're really looking for this, or you're not kind of pre-hunting moments to know that you're ticking off of a list. It was just come to our wedding, take something for us, and whatever you make, we've seen what you can do, we'll love it.
We're happy with it, yeah. If you turn up, you can be creative, and you're not worrying about looking over my shoulder, thinking, they haven't got this yet, or they haven't got this yet. They're actually just really relaxed and chilled out. So
and again, we fought the weather, didn't we? It wasn't. We got a sunset. Yeah. It wasn't maybe like a super glowy beaming directional light thing that
a bit
it could
dramatic,
have been.
wasn't it?
But we got a really cool brooding sunset. We had a little bit of rain, didn't we, during the bridal party shoot?
Yeah.
But everyone was happy to brave it. And,
that was nice. Yeah.
And I think because they had such a kind of forgiving attitude with it and really wanted to have fun despite it being they weren't hiding indoors. I feel like we kind of really gave it and kept the energy up during that.
We did,
as well, yeah.
It was almost like it wasn't raining. We were just it started raining. We all headed inside. It's sometimes that can be the moment where you see the bride and groom's face drop. Yeah. Their faces didn't drop. They were just enjoying it. Yeah. But also we were right, we're going out. Let's go.
Yeah, we're still going. That's it.
We know a place. There's a barn. There's a shelter there. Let's get your umbrellas and we'll go over there and they were just yeah, cool. There's no putting up a fight should we stop? Wait till the rain stop or whatever.
And I think you get a lot of that, especially before dinner. The bride going, I don't want to get my dress that wet just yet, and kind of hold on. If you hold on, it's going to be dark. Where they were just lovely. I think if all my couples that could be this year, just that kind of having that much faith in our abilities that stuff will come and we will get what we need. That's what we need for them.
I mean, at this point, most people do anyway.
Yeah, I think.
But
so.
I do feel sometimes, and it's never a massive sense of control, but sometimes you do feel I'm actually needed for this shot at this point or whatever. They've said that they really want that drone shot of them walking down the aisle, and now really stressed about that one shot, and it's but
it is a hell of a thing, isn't it? We go to weddings multiple times in a year, so you kind of feel that you're never going to get every shot for every couple, but if you're kind of looking at things that you maybe want to use to put out, or just have a mental tick list of what you do, you kind of think, well, if I don't always manage to get that doesn't line up at this wedding, I might get it on the next one. Yeah. Where for them, to then just to go, no, this might be our one day and one of the most important days of our life, but you do you, boo. You know what I mean? And just,
exactly.
Whatever you get, we'll love it. Where if you get a couple which are naturally maybe more controlling in their life or in their job, it's really easy, I think, for them just to go, look, this is what we really want.
Yeah.
And you naturally have that list, and it's like, well, then you kind of feel they've put some kind of wishes out there that if you don't deliver on those, even you might make them a load of other great stuff that they maybe hadn't even ever thought of.
Yeah. You're
still thinking, well, I haven't quite hit all the ticks on that list.
Yeah, exactly. There's always going to be that, you like throughout the day, you're going to be thinking, oh, that's that one thing.
Yeah.
But then you might be missing something else because you're trying to do something that they've asked you to do. So what else have you been up to? You've been to Thrive, haven't you?
I have, yes. So Thrive was last week already, yeah. So I went up to the London leg of Thrive on the Thursday, Friday, and yeah, really, really enjoyed it. I've been going, I think when I spoke to Lisa there, I said it was my 6th time at the Photography Farm conference. And I think this one was just as good as any of the others. And even where I am now, I still walked away, kind of like walked back through London, back to my hotel with my mind kind of blown and ideas of things that I could do. Or, I think we've talked about this, and we talked about it particularly in the education episode, is I had walked away with equal balance of really knowledgeable takeaways about stuff that I didn't know. And a lot of the things that were said, like all the things that weren't said, that were implied, gave me so much food for thought.
Okay, yeah. Or the things you said that were said that you sort of already knew or already you're doing, and you kind of think, I'm doing that already. I'm doing all right.
And I talked about this a lot with someone that was there, is that the idea, particularly from one of the talks with a guy called John Dolan, so if you don't know his work, go and look it up, it's amazing, is like, he's shooting weddings at like for some of the biggest names in the world, but he's still just like, I don't guarantee my couples anything.
Yeah.
I guarantee I'll come to their wedding and I'll shoot it, but that's all I guarantee.
Yeah.
Like, it's like everything is, it's like you are an artist. Like, everything is, like, there's no such thing as a wrong shot or stood in the wrong place, because that place gives you a different opportunity to where you would have been if you stood in what you thought was the right place. And so much of it is that kind of, you feel like someone lifted a millstone off my shoulders and was like, that's it, I can just go to a wedding and just create. And whatever I do, it can't be wrong. And
I feel like that translates to what we were just talking about with the wedding we did together as well.
100%, yeah.
And also the episode before this one, which is about pricing, because I feel like the higher you go in price, the less people you actually get who start requesting things. I found like when I first started and was at a lower price, I was getting a lot more of, you need to make sure you get this person. Yeah. Whereas now, like 99% of my couples, like when I did a pre-wedding call, I'm like, is there anything you definitely want? And like, no, do what you want. And that's like the best thing you can hear, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. But even just going, the education was great. I really learnt loads.
Yeah.
But Thrive's just such a lovely atmosphere. I think like Lisa's built a really wonderful community with Photography Farm. Is that I always know there was a lot of people there I did know this year, and a lot of people I hadn't seen for a long time, which was nice to catch up with. But you could go as someone who's never been to a conference before or didn't know anybody there, and somebody would put their arm around you, make you feel welcome, and you would never feel that you're kind of stood in the middle of really cliquey groups. That everybody, from the hosts, the speakers, like everything, are really, really welcoming. And I think that's something that I like. And the access that you get to the speakers, because whilst they are all photographers like you and I, they still haven't accoladed enough or have enough of a following that they're there on a pedestal as a speaker. When I imagine that if you go to, and I haven't been to too many other conferences that haven't been run by Photography Farm, but you kind of see conferences that are in kind of big scale, like theatres and stuff, where the speaker comes up and everybody claps and they kind of present this really polished thing to like 500 people, but you wouldn't feel that you could walk up to them afterwards and go, thank you, I really enjoyed that, or can I ask you a question about this? Where I feel that Photography Farm really kind of brings the people to you. And then the fact that you have the second day where you can go out and book on shoot sessions with these people and get to see how they work. So you kind of get the theory on one day and then get to go and apply that with that person on the second day. You get a really good insight as to how they work as a whole. Yeah,
I like that. As someone who's never been, like, it's good to hear about it, because I sort of do imagine those things being like you just said, like a massive room.
Yeah.
Like they sort of come on stage and then walk off and you don't get to talk to them.
Yeah, you feel they go into another room, but there, all of the speakers sit at the front throughout everybody else's talks. So they kind of feel that they're kind of like, because there was a couple of bits where it got really quite, some of the speakers got really quite emotional, and there's obviously, because they run the conference twice, they'd kind of bonded over the 2 days in Scotland and then the travel down, that even though some of them had never met before, by the end they almost became this little like functional family that had come around and were really supporting of each other and stuff like that. So it is really kind of that like family vibe. I think that it's easy to see why people like myself and others come back every year.
Yeah, it's good. And talking about that as well, like the kind of social element of it, we've just come from the Coactive as well, which
we have, that was this morning. That was the first one of our kind of new format that we did.
So just for those who haven't heard this before, so Tom runs Tom and Katie from Clearly Wild run a sort of photography, video, wedding supplier meetup called the Coactive, and we do like a summer and Christmas event, but also like events throughout the year, like coffee mornings and things that we go along to, and it's just like an opportunity to be social, go and meet some people, take a break from their editing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think if we're honest, like probably our friendship has grown from you coming to the Coactive that led to this podcast happening. Definitely. And I've met, introduced to, kind of everyone's circles begin to overlap. Like you brought people that you knew from your circle that maybe I didn't, and I introduced you to people that maybe I knew and you didn't. And I think that's what it's all about. Is
I've become close to a few people like through that, and it's like really helped.
Which for me, as someone that put that on, is a really heartwarming thing to hear. And I feel the relationships that I've made through it, like it's an absolute no-brainer that we've done it. And even though sometimes in the height of wedding season trying to like wrangle event planning, which is definitely out of my wheelhouse, when you'd asked me if I started, I would never sign up to do that. To be there on the day definitely reminds me why we've done it, and to see that kind of magic come together and people making friends, making connections, helping each other out and growing together is a really, really lovely thing. Yeah,
exactly. And it was really nice this morning, but it's also like extra helpful throughout the summer, I think, when it can be really difficult to get that time, because I know like during the summer I've been like, to a wedding spot, we should meet up here, and it never happens. And it's then with the Coactive, you've got a date set where everyone goes to a thing and that's it, and you know that you can just take the morning off sort of guilt free because everyone else is doing the same thing,
and you still feel because you're going to the other suppliers, you can still class it as work, where if you just wanted to meet up with your videographer friend for a coffee, you'd kind of feel it's a bit social, but where that it's kind of booked in like an event,
exactly,
and it almost it's almost like you need to give yourself that mental permission to go, we can go. It's really good. And for me, for that as well, like quite easily, like I went to a gig in London last night. Obviously I was away for Thrive last week. I know that I've got a job tomorrow, like wedding on the weekend. I'm kind of like, I know that I've got emails to neglect, I've got an edit to do, where if it wasn't for the fact that I had an event this morning, it would have been so easy to go,
socialise.
I won't go, I'll just stay at my desk.
But
I feel so much better and probably feel a lot less overwhelmed than I would have done if I'd just sat at my desk trying to fight fires this morning. And
it's good to catch up with people and like realise like what they're going through, and like find out about their like early sort of year, and how booked are people, and just have a chat about like the industry and your life in general as well, isn't it? Because like some people I wouldn't see for like a couple of months, and then you see them at the Coactive, so it's nice to.
And I think the good thing it's done is when the first year that we launched it, which was 2022, we stayed to pretty much just photographers and videographers, and our core of that has remained most of the way through. Most of our audience are photo and video, but we opened it up to industry wide last year, and we have a couple of hairdressers that come and makeup artists to florists. Simon from Hampshire Event DJs was there today, and sometimes it's really nice to speak to them who they're in the same industry as us, but obviously their booking patterns are different, or the numbers they need and stuff are different. So it's quite nice to like if you go to a wedding. And you might make small talk with the hair and makeup lady in the morning, but you can't really chat business while she's doing your bride's hair, you're still trying to work. So you kind of know them enough, but you can kind of sit in that kind of open forum and have those discussions. So you kind of find insights about things across your industry, but not in your direct field.
It's really funny you should say that, because I do sort of an uncut footage sort of edit where I take all of like the good bits and put them in a timeline and just deliver them. And there was one wedding last year where I was chatting to the hairstylist as she was doing the bride's hair, and for some reason we just got chatting about like CRMs and spreadsheets and stuff, and all you can hear in their like uncut footage is just like, so I have a spreadsheet of my income for this month, and like because at that point like the bride and none of the bridesmaids were all talking, none of them were talking, so we just cracked on with our own conversation. You did feel a little bit bad, but
it's interesting obviously because you never know in what circles, like what jobs your clients do sometimes.
I think she was self-employed, the bride, so she was like getting involved
in the guests as well. Like I've had like conversations with bridesmaids about things, and then they go, because I do this, and you're like, amazing. And then kind of you say like sometimes you do kind of have more things in common that you end up talking maybe more shop with someone just because of, but you're still finding common ground with them.
You are,
aren't you? So
I in an inquiry call a few weeks ago for a couple we booked in, I asked the bride what she did, and the job blew my mind. Right, it's a business that it's like when you sort of get old, you write it helps you write a book about your life, and then you give that book to like your sons and daughters.
Like you write your own eulogy for
They help you write a book about your whole life, and then you hand that book down the generations. That actually blew my mind. It's such a cool idea.
That's really cool. What's the program that used to be like that?
I don't know.
You used to get they used to surprise famous people and give them a red book, and they'd bring them on the show. People talking.
I don't know.
This is your life. That's what it was called.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, so they go, and then they'd obviously have someone on, and more or less the same thing.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
I'm older than you. So, and they'd get people, and then they'd have people that were like in different stages of their career, then come on and talk about them and stuff like that. Yeah. But I think that's a really cool.
It honestly blew my mind. I was just sat there like, I can't believe your job. It's so cool. Like.
But for you to have that as a client though, because it's sometimes like we were having this talk, weren't we, when we were at the Creative earlier, is that essentially. Like, we are providing memories for people forever, which is what this woman's doing. She's reciting it back to us. And don't think that your film's probably going to play a role in her book later down the line. You're going to film like her parents and their grandparents, who in many years aren't going to be here anymore, but she needs to try and tell her kids or her grandkids what they were like. And they're probably going to show them in your film. And people don't sometimes really strike the deeper meaning of what we do. It's so easy to get caught up in, that reel's going to bomb on Instagram because it hasn't got this in it.
And forget about the bride whose granddad's passed away, is watching that video every day.
And when you go to the absolute core of what we do, it's so important.
It's like what we were talking about before we started recording, about like journaling each day. I'm bad enough now. If I'm 60 or 70 now, someone's asked me to write a book about my life, I would not be able to remember what I did. Not even for dinner last night. Do you know what I mean?
But you could go back through some journals and go, that was that. I forgot that even happened. And I think sometimes you always, at the time, you might write something and it comes from like, everything's terrible, it's not going this. And then you look back on it in 6 months' time when things are maybe better, and you go, why was I worrying about that? Because you kind of, you almost can peek into your past knowing the future.
Yeah.
But because it's written by you, you kind of feel that you're back in it again, but you know how it ends.
And even bringing it back, because I think about this a lot, is that your journey as a business person as well. Like sometimes you'll forget how far you've come because you'll be thinking about the next thing, and you'll be like, 100%. Actually, a couple of years ago, I was doing this, that, and the other, and you kind of think, wow, I'm doing it right, sort of thing.
And I think looking back is sometimes it's like sometimes the biggest lessons that you can have about your future are in the, like we've said this on the pod loads of times, haven't we? Like if we looked at where we were 5 years ago, if you'd have told me that I'd be sat here almost a year into recording my own podcast, that people actually listen to me, and people maybe listen to the things that I tell them and it helps them, that would blow my mind.
We just thought, we started a little low-key podcast and it's doing all right.
Because that would have been almost, so when was that, 20 minutes? So I'd only been probably the first couple of years of going full-time then. And even for the fact that I'm
struggling,
that I was, even the fact that I'll be still here and paying a mortgage by taking pictures that'd have been enough for me.
That's insane to think about, isn't it? Last piece of news as well before we get onto the meat and potatoes of the episode. I've finally bought a new drone. And I don't know if I've mentioned it on the podcast, but I crashed.
I didn't know that you crashed your drone. I don't think you did. It was only that because obviously whilst I was at Thrive photography farm, at the other end of the week, obviously the photography show was on, wasn't it?
Yes,
which is a big trade show, obviously, which I'm sure many of you guys that listen to this went.
Yeah, so I ended up buying a Mini 4 Pro because I had a Mini 3 Pro, and listen, I don't think a drone is that big of a purchase. Like buying it did not bring me any joy because it's just that thing you get up at a wedding.
It's like the washing machine of a wedding. You know what I mean? Like they're one of those things that you just need to be in your kit bag and work, but it doesn't particularly excite you.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those really. I used to be excited about drones, but I feel like now it is just the token venue shot, maybe a creative shot every now and then for the right couple. But yeah, so last year I did work for like a mill sort of there's a restaurant at a mill, and they were like, if you can just like sort of fly under the trees, like through the bridge where people walk up to the mill, so we can just sort of see the journey of the customer,
like a POV type thing.
And like everything in my sort of drone pilot mind was saying, nah, like that's silly. Like why would you fly underneath trees and like on sort of head level? You shouldn't really be doing that. But I sort of like done all the rest of my drone shots like from the sky and stuff. And to be quite honest with you, I was being cocky. Like I'd never crashed a drone before, and I was like, that'd be easy. Easy. And then so I flew it over like almost over the bridge, but just before the bridge there was a little bit like really like long grass coming out of the water. There's probably a technical term for it, but and the drone literally hit one like blade of this
It doesn't
grass.
take a lot, does it? Yeah.
And everything just stopped and it just went straight into the water.
Oh, into the water as well.
Yeah,
so
into the
ground.
water.
No.
If you hit the ground, it would have been fine because these drones, they survive quite a lot. But
do they?
Yeah. So
mine hit me in the shoulder and it really hurt me. I don't know if it hurt the drone very much.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these, especially the minis, they're designed so that when it hits something, they don't hurt anybody, and that's why they have such. That's why you can pretty much fly them without a license, right? They don't, if it hits a wall or something, it's coming out more damage than the wall every time. But water, that's it. It was dead on arrival. Do you know what I mean? And so I fished it out with my tripod, like squeezing the tripod legs together and fishing it out. And I had to go to the client and was like, I am so sorry. I was like, I've got everything that I need. So the
SD
memory card's
fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all good. But then since then I've been putting off buying a new one because I can't be bothered with it. Like I said, it's quite expensive, but not a very. It's not going to make me any money.
And was that towards the end of last season that you did that?
That was towards the end.
So you didn't have many weddings left, and again,
I
flying
borrowed a couple
in bad weather and shorter hours and stuff.
I think I hired a drone for a couple of weddings of like a guy, a fat llama, and then that was it. So ended up getting a Mini 4 Pro because it's only a little bit more expensive than the 3.
Did you get a bargain? Like, all I remember is getting a text from you, and I was on the train up the thing about how people were pretty much getting like daylight robbery prices, like absolute bargain prices for top-notch gear at the photo.
Yeah, so a friend of ours got a very, very cheap FX3 as soon as we walked in. It was the last day of the show, so like there were deals to be had. As soon as we walked in, the Sony guy was like, "Yeah, you need to go to this stand, and like they're giving
you like a man that knows a man, and like a secret knock on the desk or something."
It was like it's like I know this guy's going to give you a deal. I'll bring you over to that kind of job. So I thought, buzzing, he's got a few $100 off this FX3. I'm going to try my luck with a drone. The guy was like, I'll give you £10 off, and I was fuming. And Josh cracked up. And Josh was like, I saw your face. He started calling me Salty Spuds because I got really. Because the rest of the day I was fuming. And Sean got such a good deal, and I was stood there like £10 off a drone. So I went to London Camera Exchange instead, within the show, and was like. I sort of lied to him and was like, oh, they're offering to give me this amount. And they offered to like match the lie, basically. So I got it a little bit cheaper. But again, like it was one of those things I was putting off buying.
But that was your first time at the photo show, right?
It was, yeah.
So I've only been once. So I went the last year.
We were walking past certain stands and things. For video, I do think like at the education side for video wasn't like all those lighting workshops and stuff.
That's a shame because they almost did rebrand, because it always used to be the photography show, but now it is the photo and video. Like I think they have kind of almost offered that olive branch to videographers.
Maybe we didn't go to the right like stands. I think for video it was good for the gear and stuff. There's a lot of video gear there.
Oh, that's cool.
But in terms of like talks, there wasn't much that we found. We went to this Adobe workshop. We were quite looking forward to it. It's like level up your Premiere Pro usage or whatever. So that sounds like one that's going to really, really, really sort of resonate with us. We sat down and the guy was like, right, has anyone heard of Warp Stabilize? It's this feature that stabilizes your foot. And bear in mind, Warp Stabilize is like day one. Like you learn to stabilize in your footage in day one of using Premiere Pro. And we kind of sat there and I was like, oh no, we're at a beginner class. And it was literally like he taught us Warp Stabilize, how to adjust the exposure slider, and it's like, oh no.
But I guess in a kind of a roundabout way is like the things we just said about the education and me going to Thrive is that maybe sometimes you forget how much you do know. Like things that you take for granted, I'll just do that because it's in my job or it's so ingrained in your workflow. Like somebody who's literally just starting out with Premiere Pro or never used it, like maybe you realize you don't realize how much knowledge you have. Maybe
I feel like it was very obvious there was a lot of photographers who were trying to find out a bit about video in there, and he was appealing to them for sure. And there's a lot of people like, oh, that's actually quite interesting. I might start using that. So But yeah, so I think it was a good show to go to.
Would you go again?
Yeah, I'd definitely go again. Yeah. I like that it's now back at the beginning of the year as well.
I think it's the right place for it. Like to go at the end of the year, especially when you're looking to buy kit. Like I know that if you need a new spare camera, you needed the drone, whatever. To kind of buy it now at the start of your season, knowing that you're going to get the good use out of that piece of equipment, and also you maybe haven't got loads of money because you just pay a tax bill, haven't had too many weddings. The bargains are well needed, but if you went in September, I think I'd be the other way. I'm going, I've only got a couple of weddings left of the year now. Do I really want to invest in kit? It's going to sit in my bag over the winter, and then maybe a new one will come out in the meantime before I actually need to use that one.
That's exactly what my thought when I crashed the drone is like, oh, coming to the end of the year, there's no point in me buying something new anymore. So yeah, I think it's a good time to do it at the beginning of the season. Like John's now got his camera for the rest of the season, and that's like a very good thing. So there's this like sort of meme about videographers who switched to DaVinci Resolve, and I was sat there at this Adobe thing going, Resolve does that as well, just to sort of play into it. But
I guess because DaVinci's part of like Blackmagic though, right?
Yeah, and it's free for like the regular version. So I switched to it a couple of years back and never looked back. And annoyingly, I still pay the Adobe subscription purely for like Photoshop, Lightroom, and every now and then I'll go into Premiere and use the retime tool. No, so you can put a music track in there, and then you can just shorten it to whatever you want, and it'll remix it so that it's that.
Oh, that's clever.
So if I'm doing a 1 minute trailer, but I've got a 5-minute song, you can just put it into there, and it'll just use AI to like cut it up into sections. So I'll literally do that, export it as MP3, go back into Resolve.
Literally, you got eggs in all baskets. So I guess before we move into today's episode, which I'm actually really looking for, I guess it's time that we do the scary thing and announce our news, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, so big news coming. We've sort of teased about it on our Instagram stories, and we did an episode about education a few episodes ago.
Yeah, pretty much start of the year.
Got some good feedback on it, and some people asking us to do a workshop, so we're going to do a workshop.
We are going to do a workshop. Yeah, there it is. The news is out there. So on May the 1st, we will be doing a marketing and branding workshop in Guildford. So it's going to be at the Cozy Club in Guildford. And yeah, we'll be there kind of doing like a full day workshop. We're still finalising the last little bits of it, but because obviously we are a podcast for photographers and videographers, rather than trying to do something, say, super technical so that only people kind of walk away with certain bits, it's going to be much more based on sort of the marketing and branding episodes that we've done on the pod, and it'll be kind of more in depth of those. I'm also really excited. I want to do some live website reviews on the day as well. I know that when I've done kind of workshops like this, I've actually felt like I've walked away with some of the biggest actual like I have a list of things about my site that I can go and change, will do that. So I think we're going to do some of those in the afternoon. But yeah, we're going to try and offer this one. It will be completely transparent. This is the first one we're going to do. So we're going to do it at what I think is going to be a really, really good price, really affordable price for the knowledge that's going to be on offer. Because
we want to get the experience of actually doing it as well, isn't it? So
so you guys will be the first people to get the education from us. And yeah, I think it'll be really good. Really cool location as well. Really, really excited to be in that room. It's kind of really kind of fancy, but chilled vibes. Not classroomy at all. Like we want to be all the things that says about Photography Farm, super approachable, really nice.
Relaxed.
A fairly small group as well. So if once that comes out, keep an eye on the description for this podcast or also our Instagram, and that will be the first time where the ticket link goes up. We are looking at less than double figures, so that hopefully the tickets will go.
Yeah, we want it to be super limited, so it can be, like you say, quite casual, like conversation wise. We obviously want to deliver a lot of really sort of good information, but we want people to be able to ask questions, and we don't want to go straight in with like 15 people and it'd be like quite, us just dishing out information. So it's going to be like we're going to go into like how to form your brand, like your target audience. We're going to talk a little bit about marketing using that brand as well, and the website thing was quite big as well, because not only is that a big part of your like brand, but also you've spoken about on the pod before how you went to, was at the same event, and and they looked at your website and was like, you should be charging more.
Yeah, I think that basic thing, like I've always said very much is that, again, I don't want to give too much of the workshop away, is that the buck stops with your website. I think all of the things that you market to should funnel to your website.
Yeah.
And so if that's not on brand with everything else, or that's where you really need to be harnessing everything. So I think if we can kind of help you and look over your website to offer some of our advice on what's worked for us, that you should walk away from this hopefully with a bunch of knowledge about marketing and branding, and a list of real actionable changes which will benefit your business.
Because that's really handy as well to have that, because that's almost a section of a one-to-one mentoring session, isn't it? Because you can sit there and take in all this information that people are throwing at you, but because it's quite generic, it doesn't necessarily apply to your business. But if we can sit there and look at your website, because we'll obviously probably look at it as well before, like if you send us your websites when you book your tickets, then we'll look at it before, but then we can actually give you personalized sort of advice on it, can't we?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's nice, and we found out oftentimes on this podcast we don't always agree. So sometimes it's quite nice to kind of see things, and we really want to offer our opinions of what's worked for us, but then you can take that advice away and what you choose to do with that, or how you choose to interpret what we've done. Sometimes, like I said when I went to that education earlier this week, just provide you with enough food for thought to kind of go, well, why are you doing this? Rather than you're just doing it because everybody else's site looks like that.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out. It is coming. Hopefully, some of you come, and I'm really, really excited to kind of just to go a little bit more in depth than what we can do in the time that we have on the pod.
Yeah, there's a lot of like huge things that are really interesting that like I want to sort of put in it, but it's like either a whole episode or it's like we've sort of mentioned it in passing, but it'd be really nice to collate all those thoughts into one thing and be like, right guys, if you try this for your business and
be bespoke to you and your business as we're looking at it live. Which I feel now is really odd to go into. We're going to tell people that we're really good and can offer them great advice, and now the rest of the episode is about mistakes that we've made that gone wrong.
So link in description for that. We'll have the tickets probably ready by the time this episode goes out. So
I hope so.
I'm really excited about that. But as Tom just said, so what we thought we'd do this episode is talk about some of the mistakes that we've made previously, because I feel like it's important to learn from those from people who have made them already, so that you don't make it like, some of the biggest most valuable information to me is when someone goes, I really wish I didn't do this one thing, and you're like, oh, okay, that's a good
and
point.
I think for me that's been the driving force behind starting the Coactive, starting the podcast, doing this, is I feel that I shot my first wedding in 2009, and then it took me till 2015 to kind of go full time with that's like a 6-year gap where I feel that if I'd have kind of really knuckled down, not made some of these mistakes, or did the opposite of all the things that we're going to talk about, that I really could have shortened that process and maybe be further along in my journey or leveled up sooner. I feel like my upward curve of trajectory would be a lot smoother than it has been.
There's definitely a pattern in our notes of, like, I could tell that if we hadn't made these mistakes, then we would we would be further than we are now. And that's
a cautionary whale episode. don't do these things, and you might be all right.
But I feel it's gonna be really, really helpful as well. So, and I feel like it's quite a good time to do this, especially after our last episode about pricing. Got lots of good feedback on that, and it's become a really popular episode of ours.
Which is amazing, because like we said, it's a taboo subject. Not a lot of people want to talk about it. So maybe because we did throw it wide open and did nothing but talk about it for over an hour, it's giving people a lot of food for thought.
I raised my prices as soon as I got home from talking to you about that episode, and
I still haven't.
Still
thinking about it. Maybe.
All right, so my first mistake is probably my biggest one, is leaving my job too early. So I've spoken about it on the pod before, but I worked at Debenhams. I earned £50 to £60 a day, or whatever it was, and I was calculating whether I could leave my job based on how much money I could earn from a wedding. So let's say I earned £250 to £300 a week. I was calculating, how many weddings do I have to do in the next 6 months to earn the same amount as I did at Debenhams, right? If I was earning a few £100 doing weddings, and it wasn't much. And so my instant thought was, I need to get as many as I could at that price so that I could get out of there. And what ended up happening was then I got like a nice little 6-month buffer, and then immediately quit my job. No savings, no backup, nothing. I literally quit my job, went straight into this. And because I didn't have that safety blanket anymore, I found myself stuck at that price range for a while I tried to figure everything out and realize what it was to be self-employed, and what, find out a lot more about the industry so that I could raise my prices, I wasn't really thinking about that. I was just thinking about surviving in the same way that I was surviving in my job. Whereas if you were to say stay in your job for a bit longer, take some risks, push that pricing and see just sort of how you can, like, how high you can get, use some of that extra income from weddings to invest back in, like, getting a website designer or someone to copy your SEO, then I feel like by the time you've then become self-employed, you should probably have a buffer of some sort of savings, so that if it's like 6 months of savings, so that you can be confident to raise your prices and not have to worry about I'm not getting bookings, oh my god, do I need to go back into my job? And 2, I forgot what 2 was going to be, but a buffer of savings and an already sort of idea of the brand and the direction you want to go in.
Yeah, like you're not almost like wandering into the darkness with no torch and trying to find your way.
Which is exactly
you're going in with a kind of a healthy lantern of a path of where you want to go. Yeah. And I've said this, and I think maybe I'm talking too generally, but I think you got to remember in the times that we were leaving our jobs, I think the pandemic and COVID has been a huge leveler in terms of kind of acceptance of people having other jobs alongside doing this. Like, I know when I was there, one of the first questions that people say to you, is this your full-time job? And it was almost like there was a real kind of benchmark, is that people wouldn't take you seriously unless or I felt a pressure that I hadn't made it as a successful thing until I was full-time. Where now looking back at people that are going, oh, you know, I'm still doing this part-time at the moment, but trying to make it work. I'm like, but you're in the best place if you've got a job because you have an income. If you take a risk and it doesn't work out for you, you're not out on the street with no money to pay your mortgage, and you've still got the security of sick pay and pension. That you're not really going out kind of just going, I really hope it works. If it doesn't, you've got to, like you said, have that recurring nightmare of going back to Debenhams and everyone going, well, you failed, didn't you? Where I felt definitely when I was there that I had to, I've got to make this work. But at the same time, I remember like that first day being sat in my flat going, this is my office now. Like I'm full time. And I really felt that like huge sense of achievement that I'd finally gone full time.
It's massive, isn't it? Yeah. Like it is huge. Like you do feel bloody good about yourself.
But if you are sat, if you are sat at home though going, and like the dream for you is to go full time, like say go into it with your eyes open and a real solid plan. Don't think that, you know, the peak of your first mountain isn't going full time. I really don't think it is now. And don't try and push for that until you are super ready.
Maybe have a like a tick box list of the things that you want before you go full time, and those could include like a solid Instagram following, a good website, some good SEO, 6 months of like backup income, and a good set of bookings for the year after. And then you're in a solid position where you can go into.
Yeah, and I think the only thing that I'd add to that is know where you want to go beyond going full time. Yeah. Because I didn't. Mine was like, I just need enough bookings to go full time. And then I got there and was like, yeah, I'm full time. What do I do now?
But you've got in yours that you didn't go full time quick enough, right?
Yeah, in some ways, and I do still believe that. If someone asked me now what my number one regret was when we started writing the notes list, that's what I said straight away. Yeah. Is that again, I kind of feel that because of all those things, for probably 2 or 3 years before I left my job, and I know I reduced my hours, so I wasn't working completely full time, but I was probably still doing almost 30 hours a week at my job.
Oh wow, yeah.
I think I had 2 years where I shot 25 plus weddings as well as worked 30 hours a week, and I got to the point in the end where a lot of my job, the busiest day at the shop that I worked at was a Saturday. So my boss was going to say, well, if you want to have Saturdays off to shoot weddings, you can't just make the hours up everywhere else. It has to be holiday.
Yeah.
So I had almost 2 years where I did not go on holiday, and I did not really have a break.
Wow.
Because all of the holiday that I took from my job was to shoot weddings.
Saturday, for weddings.
And the strain that put on my relationship, just in terms of having a break, I'd come home from work in the evening, I'd have to edit in the evenings because I was back to work the next day.
Why do you think you carried on then?
I got used to get paid weekly from my job.
Yeah.
And I've been there since I was 16.
Yeah.
Through college, through university, and the rest of it.
And you quite enjoy it.
I liked my job. I liked my boss.
Yeah.
I worked in a very, very small business, so there was an element of maybe of guilt that I know that he secretly wanted me to stay there and maybe work alongside him.
You didn't want to let him down.
So I didn't want to let him down, because again at that point we were probably more friends as much as he was my boss.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like if I'd hated my job, it'd been really easy to leave. But there was always that kind of sense of, oh, well, if I go, who's going to look after, who's going to do my job then?
Yeah.
And I know that he didn't maybe have a good solid plan for what happened when I left. And I gave him loads of notice when I left, like far longer than I probably had to for like the job that I was in.
Yeah.
But then I kind of feel that, if I'd have left at the start of that year, that first year that I shot still like 24, 25 weddings, I would have been okay, because I think I'd had enough money behind me or enough work behind me, but then I wouldn't have got to the point where I felt like I was in a box and I couldn't get out. And because that year then I earned pretty good money from weddings, but still had my job, which although it didn't pay me a lot of money, it was regular money. So then I was like, and I got used to that year of going, oh, actually I've got some money to do some stuff.
Yeah.
But then if I ditch off the job, I've then just lost, say, like a third of my income.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, will I be okay? And the panic set in if they're like, well, what if the wedding stop?
Yeah.
What if nobody books me next year? And the rest of it. And it wasn't to the end where I got to a point where I was like, I can't have another year where I shoot nearly 30 weddings.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the holiday to take.
Sounds really intense doing that many hours.
I didn't have the holiday to take for the bookings that I had.
Yeah.
So in the end, I was kind of, well, I've got to go now. And I think in the end, I got to that point where I was like, it's a now or never thing. Like, because otherwise, I'm sure, like my wife Rose said to me, if you're really not careful, you need to just kind of be that selfish person and make the break. Because otherwise, you're going to be 5 years later and you're still going to be trying to make this your thing. And I remember the day that I handed my notice in, and my boss was pretty upset that I was leaving, but he knew it was coming. And I think that he said to me, like, this shop is my dream. And he's like, and taking photos is your dream. And he's like, whilst I'm gutted that this shop isn't your dream too, you need to go. You've got your own business to look after now. And I think that was really nice that we left on really good terms. I still went back and helped out the pandemic. We're still friends today.
Yeah.
But I do still feel that I stayed at my job too long.
And you shot his daughter's wedding.
I did. I shot his daughter's wedding last year.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah,
didn't
we
we?
did.
Yeah. And we had a really good time. So, but I feel that if I'd left though, where the point that I'd have been at the point that I left my job, if I'd left 2 years earlier, I feel would have been quite different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
It sounds like,
I feel like it prevented me from leveling up in the end, because it took me a while. When I finally left my job, although I had a good amount of weddings, I was just like, do you know what? I'm so glad I haven't got to like be editing through the night anymore. I can actually edit in the day.
Yeah.
And I was kind of in this bubble of like, this is amazing. That I kind of just needed probably that year to just get used to the new normal of actually having time to get to tasks.
You have time to
that
have
I
a
never
life.
got to.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, because before I was literally shoot, edit, shoot, edit, shoot, edit.
Yeah.
There was no chance. I had venues going, oh, come over and see us and drop us some flyers off so you can recommend.
No
I
time.
couldn't get there.
Yeah.
I had no time.
Yeah.
And so now I had all this world of time
Yeah.
to do, and it probably took me, say, a good probably year or 18 months just to kind of get used to having only my business to concentrate on work-wise.
Yeah. I love that feeling. I feel like not only with the job thing, but like as I've been doing less and less weddings and less things in general each year, I've had more time to focus on like just the business in general.
Yeah.
Like when you're sort of doing that, like working full time and grinding sort of thing, you're thinking about the next shoot or the next edit, and you before you know it, your website is 2 years old, all your content on there is old. But like now with like I've said we both do like an amount of weddings where we can still every now and then get back on the website, update some content and stuff like that.
And I still feel
that
the next mountain for me now is I'm at that point where, like, we've said, having that list of what do I need to do, what jobs am I still doing again, because I'm probably being nice that I could probably afford to drop now. I don't need those other little commercial jobs to kind of to prop me up. Or I'm at a point where I'm like, I'm at that almost going full time again, where I'm going, do I need to bring someone else on board, or is there things that I need to outsource?
Yeah.
Like, I know that when I went full time because there's tasks that I need to get to that I physically don't have time to get to because I'm at a job. Yeah. And now I'm at a time where there's tasks that I need to get to, but even whilst this is my job, I still don't have time to get to them.
Yeah.
So it's like, is this the time to outsource? And
it's because you pick up other things, don't you, as you go along, and
that's another episode. Outsourcing is another episode in itself, and I think we need to dabble into that. But it's really nice that we kind of, both of us, that was the first thing that we were drawn to, is that you feel that you left too soon, and I didn't leave soon enough.
Yeah.
So hopefully in the middle of that somewhere there is a balance.
It's
to
a
be
good
had.
middle ground of when to leave your job. Yeah, which is the things I said earlier. That with those bullet points, I think would made a good point of like, just make sure you've got what you want before you leave. I mean, to be fair, like I had a situation where I wasn't enjoying my job anyway. It was making me getting me proper down. I accepted like a sort of promotion, but I was like doing a lot of like odd jobs. It wasn't like I was working on the shop floor. Like I really enjoyed Debenhams a lot of the time. Like it was all my good friends were there and stuff like that. But it was sort of a point where like you go to the basement and do all this work. And do you know what I mean? And I'm on the side, I had this business that was doing really well. Clients trying to call me and couldn't because I was working.
I think in the end, it wouldn't have mattered what job you'd got at Debenhams, because almost your heart in the end is, this is just job serving a purpose.
Yeah, at that point,
financially, but it's not fulfilling me because my head is in the thinking about the wedding that I'd rather be at home editing, because I'm really excited to jump into that because I had a really good time at it. And it's hard, isn't it?
Next one for me was not second shooting. And I think I probably mentioned this before, but essentially I think that you learn on the job with this kind of job. I feel there's no other way to learn. You can watch as much BTS online as you want, but the stress and the what you have to think about of a wedding day is not replicated through someone saying, this is how I shoot with my 50mm. Like, it's just not, you cannot get that unless you're there and you deal with the couple leading up to the day, on the day, and after the day. And so I really wish that early days I'd reached out to a few videographers, asked a second shoot for them. Then I would have got an idea on, what, because I could have asked them what they do before the wedding day to make sure they get the best out of the couple, on the day, how a day works, rather than doing like 10, 15, 20 weddings before I'd even got a gist of how the day works and how different people's days are. It gets to the point where I'd say now, after like a few hundred, you've done every sort of different type of timeline and things like that, haven't you? Most of them. But then you're sort of in the first couple of years, you're trying to get used to everyone's different timelines, how different weddings work. And I feel like that can have an impact on the quality. Whereas if I'd have done the second shooting for people for a year or two, a lot of the questions and the mistakes that I would have made further down the line wouldn't have been made, because I would have just had a bit more knowledge.
And the variety as well, I think. If you second shoot for like 3 or 4 different people, like for all the things that we said in the catch-up, is there is no right or wrong in this business. It's finding out the best way, which is most adapts to you and your style and what your couples want. And I found that, again, I didn't second shoot until I was probably in that, say, first or second year of being full-time. So I'd done 5 or 6 years by myself. And it wasn't until, say, certain couples had gone, oh, how about we do ours this way round? And I'm like, I've never thought about that. Where if I'd watched somebody else go, oh, I do it this way, who'd been in the industry for a length of time and shot far more weddings than I had, I would have, say, leveled up or not found things the hard way, or just someone going, well, why don't you do it this way? Like, I had no one to question me.
Yeah, exactly.
And because I was still living that, like, well, I'm full time now, I'm the boss, I know this. And like you're saying, there was no one there to go, well, actually, this is really easy. Like, you're making such hard work for yourself trying to do this.
Yeah.
And it's also...
But you won't know that unless you spend time around, and it's like, we're in an industry where you don't spend time around people who are doing the same thing.
And again, as well, like when we started, or back then, Instagram wasn't really a thing, or definitely not. People weren't giving knowledge away, not in the same way they are now. Podcasts like this didn't exist.
Podcasts and education is massive.
You had to grab scraps of information where you could kind of say pour over a BTS YouTube video, or someone might allude to something and you had to do that, or say actively go out and seek education. But then that wasn't kind of how to manage your timeline. I feel like in some ways now, and I really don't want to sound like an old person going, oh, you've got it so easy. But there is just such a wealth, which is great.
So much.
Is that there's so many people out there now willing to share information of how they do things. But I still stand by, even though all of that is out there, is just get yourself to weddings. Like like we've said, some of the biggest lessons that we've had are in the mistakes that we've made. And you will learn far more when you're at a wedding and something goes wrong and seeing how people overcome that, rather than just turning into an absolute like sea of panic and going, I don't know what to do. And then you kind of just become lose your professional cool or make the wrong choice in front of a couple. It's how you adapt. Where if you go, oh, I was at a wedding, this happened before, it tipped you down with rain, if you just do this, or oh, this happened, you just do this, and you you're much more calm about it because you've just got those hours at weddings on you. Like I would say, and I'll always love to be surprised that there's I've seen a lot at weddings. I've seen a lot of things go wrong. I've seen a lot of catastrophe. But I've seen a lot of people rally together and overcome it. And people
especially experienced people, and you can tell with the suppliers that something goes wrong and they're like, just fix it immediately, job done. And the ones that oh, everything's going wrong.
And I've had couples say to me, or even in reviews or at the end of the day, you've been such a calming presence today. Like in times where I've been going to pieces, I've looked at you and you've been so laid back. And it's like, it's fine, just do this. And it's almost like that's made me feel calm because I know that you're not worried about it. And I often say that to my brides. I was like, there's not a lot that will flap me on your wedding day anymore. So if you look at me and I look worried, that's when you need to worry.
So I just sort of think, it's the trajectory that you were talking about earlier of experience, and I feel like that trajectory goes up quicker if you just learn from people who are already in. And like you say, there's tons of stuff online now, like podcasts, education. There's Facebook groups with, oh, this client has done this to me. What should I do? Or I've lost this footage. What should I do? And whatever. And there's a wealth of information, but nothing can replicate the actual experience.
And people really want to help you now as well. I feel like when we were there was a lot of old guard photographers that really did what like
you were the new guy.
You're a kid unless you earn my respect. I'm telling you nothing. Or like you'd only learn on the job.
Whereas everyone helps everyone now.
Yeah, which is a far better place to be.
Like things like the co-active that we went to earlier. Like there's a lot of conversations we have there which are just like, oh, I've had this, or oh, you mate, you probably need to raise your prices, and we're working collaboratively now.
And we've had people that have come to Corrective who, again, like, I'm going to shout her out. I don't know if she listens or not, but Charlotte Florence, like, she came to the Corrective when our first event, and I don't think she'd shot a wedding at the time. And now, like, she's making great work. She's second shot for 3 or 4 different people that she met through the Coactive, and is now got a really good business of her own. She's making great photos. Again, like, I'm not saying that's purely down to the people that she shot, but she never would have got to go to some of those venues early in her career, seeing how 4 or 5 different great photographers work.
Yeah.
Within 18 months of being in the industry.
Yeah. By having those contacts and just asking people, like, can I second shoot for you? And like you say about the venues and things, what's also important about second shooting is not just the experience, the content. So obviously this depends on who you're second shooting for, what their rules are and things like that. And that's a whole other episode we probably will broach. But if they allow you to use that content, and you end up at like some venue in London or something, and you've just started in your first year, that's so much more valuable than all your weddings you'll be doing at your local hotel, like Premier Inn, for the first year of doing videography or photography.
And also just that knowledge pool. Like, I joked, say, when I went to Thrive, like, to go and listen to people talking, I'm going to go and sit under the learning tree. And it's like, there's so many things about that, if you about not being the cleverest person in the room. And I would have loved to have spent some time with like a photographer that was 10 years in when I was 20 and just started, and I feel like I would have sucked up every bit of knowledge that was on offer, or even just watching them work on the wedding day, the way that they spoke to a couple to get a reaction, or the way that the places they put themselves in. Like, I had left so much of that to just blind luck and experimentation because I didn't know any better. Where if you had someone going, look, if you stand there, mate, you're going to get nothing, or I know that they're going to finish this and walk this way just because I know, because you've been to that many weddings, and someone would have smartened me up. A lot of those mistakes then, or times where I maybe got going, we really wanted this photo because I wasn't stood in the right place. Just because I wasn't there.
Or the effort spent to get the same amount or the same quality of work as well.
Like,
if you were running around like during the reception drinks or like candids, just trying to get like a shot, like, I'm trying to get a shot, no one will stay still for me. That's like one thing. But when someone says something like, just stand behind the bride, they're going to hug someone, shoot, job done. Like, the effort level has gone massively down, but your content stays really good.
And I found that, effort level is huge. Like, knowing when to do something. Like, if and I learned really rapidly that trying to get group photos done straight out of the ceremony is a terrible idea.
Because
I learned that the hard way of trying to battle to try and round Nan up while she just wants to talk to the bride, or someone's just stood bang in front of there where you're trying to corral a group. It's like, okay, if I just wait for it. But I learned that the hard way. If someone had just told me, like, I wouldn't have had those 2 weddings where I was like, these group photos taking forever. Why am I doing this? It's taking so long. No one's listening to me. And then thought it was all my fault. If someone just comes on me and going, get yourself a drink, watch the candids, absorb those hugs, take the natural photos of that, start your groups 20 minutes in. You've got time. You're fine. Like, I would have been like
less stress getting everyone together,
and probably got a better result.
Better result.
I battled it, and probably spent most of the dinner worrying about how stressful that was.
Don't fight the flow of the river, isn't it? Just let it flow, basically.
But no one told me because
you wouldn't have known.
I didn't go and seek that. because I didn't go and learn from anybody else.
Didn't go and learn from people. So I think second shooting is very good for that reason. So,
and I think that leads into kind of my second point a little bit nicely. That mine says, I didn't take the business side of this seriously, therefore preventing me from earning more, and felt I couldn't charge for stuff and still be an artist. Like, again, I spent ages, maybe because I did like a fine art like background, I was very much like that. I just want to come take photos, and we're still kind of living that like lovely bubble that I always pay my bills by it. I still never thought, if someone said to you, what are you? Well, I'm a photographer. I wouldn't have said I'm a business owner.
You're an artist.
I never thought of myself as
okay.
someone that runs a small business. Like, talking business made me feel icky. I didn't want to talk about that. Like, You know, when you used to go and do a client meeting and someone would go, well, how much are you then? I'd be like, oh, it's on the website. I wouldn't stand behind my price. And they could tell that if they asked me, well, can I have a discount? I probably would have gone, yeah. And I was just so happy that I was earning probably still more than I was at my old job.
Please book me. I love my job.
But I was making money from photos. And I, for a long time, I kind of felt, well, you don't need to be a business person because you're not a business person.
Yeah.
Like, you don't wear a suit and hold a briefcase. You hold a camera and go to people's weddings. And once I kind of realised, well, I'm on, again, I've done the first mountain, I've come out self-employed, but I'm never going to grow anywhere or get to the places that I want to be, or then go, well, I need to buy a house. I'm never going to get a mortgage on the money that I'm earning from now. I might be very happy taking pictures of people's weddings, but I need to start taking the business side of this seriously and almost having the mindset to go, yes, you're allowed to be a good artistic photographer, but at the same time, you still need to put on that business person hat in order to run this efficiently, smoothly, and make some damn money from it.
I think even when I sort of first met you, or even early days as a co-active, you were sort of been like, I'm going to get this business stuff nailed, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I feel like, say, probably around a couple of years ago, was when that really lit that fire under me. It's like almost I allowed myself to get excited about being a business person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And because for a long time I mentally shut off and was like, nope, can't do that. I'm not a business person. Like, you know, kind of going, oh yeah, well, if someone goes, oh, can we just have this? Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And almost if there was anything like that other people upcharged for, I'd go, I don't feel like I can do that. I don't feel like I'm allowed to. There was no one giving me permission because I was me, but it's kind of having, you know, all the things we just said, having conversations with people, go, well, why aren't you charging for that? Or you're allowed to do this, or if you do this, you can see this growth, or that's going to allow that. Yeah. Like, I almost didn't, and some of the most favourite chats that we've had on this podcast have been about business.
Yeah, definitely.
And I almost, like, almost in my mind, completely shut that aspect of being a self-employed person off.
Yeah. I feel like this is interesting again because I felt the opposite, like in a way that I've always focused more on the business side, and it's only really not recently, but like it took me a while to sort of hone in on like the emotional side and the video side and like getting into that, like realizing what a wedding day is and stuff. Up until then, I was like the video guy, like the business sort of thing, but then you start to hone in more on like what's really important to like the couples and things like that, and sort of like video techniques and things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Or using it again, or almost allowing yourself to go, okay, I'm not just a business person. Like, the video camera is not just a segue for me to make money.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, no, I do have creative skill and I can pull at people's emotions with the way that I film things or record things, and almost you allow the artist to creep in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you see people as humans rather than just clients. And then when those two meet, that you can have the best of both.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
even like a lot of the conversations I've had with you have helped me to like see that, like just see certain parts of the day in a different way. And obviously like the film workshop I did made me see like the whole certain part, how to capture certain parts of the day in a different way to change the perspective. And like, so it's funny that because I was a business person first and then let the creative.
And I think it really depends on how you do find yourself in this industry. Like, if you were someone that came from like a job that was quite corporate business, you might have the business model bit absolutely sussed. But go, I really find it hard to be creative, get inspired, or do that. Where I always came from, say, like, all of my study was, I did a fine art photography course. So, like, when we talk, like, I know a lot about kind of like composition and gallery work and like famous photographers because I studied them at that. And so I have kind of that bit, like the concept bit and the emotion bit down. But then maybe because I spent 3 years at in an art uni, that kind of bashed the way out of me, that talking facts and figures and knowing about margins and stuff was almost like, you don't need to know that.
But also, I do feel like maybe photography specifically, but definitely video as well. It's more important than ever now. Business side is more important than ever now, because I reckon if you started like 20 years ago, your quality of your photography would be a huge factor of people booking you.
Yes.
But I think now the quality of your branding and your business is probably like 80% of the reason people book you.
I would say with some conviction, there are people who, or the people that aren't the best photographers aren't the ones making the most money, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, say, if you could be a level 10 photographer, but if you can't market yourself, or you don't have that, again, you haven't unlocked that door in your mind that allows you to see the value in your art, you won't be making as much money or getting ahead as the guy who's the level 4 photographer which is the best at selling himself and has the best mind for marketing his business. Yeah.
And that's why you should go to workshops on brand and marketing.
Definitely. So yeah, you'll be getting that and also much more.
Yeah, exactly. But that's more important than ever.
It's a huge one, I think, as well. Like and it sounds like a term that's really passed around a lot at the moment. But I think if you can change the way, and it's hard, when you're looking at within, or you're looking at almost being self-critical and go, why can't I get to this place? Or when you are working as a one-person business, there's no one there to tell you, oh, you can't see this or can't do that.
Yeah.
And I guess that leads on to my next one a little bit, which I think maybe leads into one of yours, is being apprehensive of change.
Yep.
I've got so much sometimes tunnel visions into a way of, this is the way I've always done it, which this must mean that's the way it has to be done.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, again, I started going to these workshops or speaking to other people and they're going, why are you still using Camera Raw and editing all of your photos individually?
Yeah.
That's taking me, like a week to edit. But why? Oh, because I couldn't learn something else.
I've just done that. Yeah.
Well, why?
Yeah.
And once I shift that mindset of, well, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
If I try that and it doesn't work, I just go back to the old way. I haven't lost anything. And I remember someone saying to me, like, oh yeah, just get on Lightroom. Like, you can do this and that. And I was like, but I had never used Lightroom before because it didn't exist when I started taking digital photos.
Yeah.
I only had Bridge. And then Aperture came out. Do you remember that for Apple? They had their own version of Lightroom
called
Aperture.
Yeah,
and
very briefly.
I started to use that and it came and went.
Yeah.
And and Lightroom was like this giant rock that I could just never crack.
Yeah.
And one day I was like, well, I can't spend, again, probably, I've got 30 weddings this summer. I can't spend a week editing weddings. I never get anything done.
Yeah.
And just downloaded it in the middle of wedding season, chucked a wedding into it, and it half my editing time.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is crazy. What have I spent the last 3 years editing every single image through Camera Raw, like with no preset, and going, oh, this is it, and just doing the same,
because that's the way you've done it,
monotonizing that task and doing everything literally manual, or having the settings written down on a bit of paper that I edited the last one to, so I can dial those in again on the night. And you're going, well, no one told me that.
It's super. I think we're all guilty of it. But it's super frustrating to talk to somebody who is clearly stuck in that rut, and you're trying to get them out of it. And it's like, mate, you please, like, just try it. It's going to speed up your workflow.
It might take you a day now. And you're in this thing of, well, I need to get it finished, so I can't start it. But if you take a day to learn that now, it's going to save you like hours over the next 6 months. So that day that you might have lost learning it hasn't been lost at all, and you're so easy to get in those like blinkers and go, this is the only way I know how to do this, and it doesn't mean it's the best way.
For me, it's the CRM thing. When you hear that someone's like managing their clients on a spreadsheet, and you're like, but what's Student Ninja? And they're like, oh yeah, but it just takes a while to set up, and like I just get really frustrated. It's like, I know that you're waiting.
I was double booked earlier this year, and the pattern's like, no, like that sickness feeling. I double booked myself once, and that was the year that I got myself a CRM. For that reason,
like your way might work, but if me and Kate have this thing that we talk about, especially quite recently, of if you're, I think it's because we watched The Apprentice, and like that's quite a good example of this. If you're the one saying this idea is amazing and everyone around you is saying it's terrible, 99% of the time it is terrible. So this sort of applies to this, is if you're the one using X sort of method and everyone around you is saying, yeah, I used that, but I moved on to this, it's so much better, you're the one who's crazy, and even if everyone else is crazy for moving on. Do you know what I mean?
But I agree, and I think from the things you're there, embracing change sometimes can be hard, because I think, and I did for a while, because it almost then feels like you're admitting you're wrong. And once you just get over yourself and go, well, I might be wrong, but I've just saved myself a load of time because I'm onto this thing now. Like, the longer that you dwell on something and you pick that hill to die on, all you're doing is self-sabotaging.
Exactly.
And it's like you said, if you look around and everybody else is using that, like, you might be different and renegade for doing it this way, but you also might be a damn fool because you're taking a long time to do something.
You might be losing time and therefore
and
money.
Particularly in things that are repeatable or outsourceable tasks.
Yeah.
Like, say, using a CRM, why would you sit there and write everybody's invoice manually, update it manually, have to then have set manual calendar reminders to go, oh, it's now 6 weeks from their wedding, you need to do this. When you could just go, there's a workflow, boom, I've written all of this in my voice.
Job done. And everything's remembered for you, so you don't have to send that email out 4 weeks before to book a call.
It's like that idea of being a busy fool, isn't it? Like, it's like, are you busy because you've got lots on, or you're busy because you're just not being efficient?
Also, all these things cram up your brain as well. I mean, we're getting probably a bit too in-depth into CRMs, but there's a lot of things, that they can cram up your brain, and that just releases them all, and then you've got time for other things, and it's like...
But again, listen to the others around you and be open to change. I think if, once I kind of landed at that mindset of, okay, I can be a business person and an artist. Okay, what's everybody else doing? Okay, this is a real pinch point for me, so what's the answer? And rather than just going, well, I'm just going to sit and just plow myself through with loads of man hours and be the hardest working person.
Yeah.
It's like I chose to be the smartest working person instead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way of putting it. Amazing.
So what's your next point, Chris?
My next point is thinking I could be an island. So I'm very guilty of, at the very sort of first few years of my career, I did say that I wasn't going to go into the wedding industry. I wanted to film weddings, but I didn't want to be a wedding industry person.
I still think I'm like that now.
Oh, yeah,
like,
we are.
If someone goes to you, hey, what do you do? I'm a person that photographs weddings. I'm not a wedding photographer because I feel like all the stigma that's attached to being a wedding photographer.
When we did a podcast, you did education, you did the co-active. You're very much a wedding industry person now. But I feel like there was, all of like the first couple of years, you get like calls about styled shoots. They'd be like, oh, there's going to be this like model there doing this. I was like, I can't be bothered with it. Like, I just want to film weddings and earn money.
Yeah.
And as much as I still don't do style shoots now, I'm a little bit more open to, if a supplier contacts me, helping them out to do something than I maybe used to. Because before I was very much like I'm here, I'm running my business and doing my thing. I don't really want to get involved with your thing, so just sort of leave me alone. Yeah. But now, like, I feel like after realizing that they're like, I think people have become a lot more connected now through Instagram and Facebook and like all these events now and stuff as well. So I've realized now that the social element of the wedding industry is actually just as important as anything else, and helping other people out.
Well, like I say, being an island is that, and I think we can learn that. I think I've brought it up a couple of times during this episode, which is kind of maybe a little bit sad. But like a lot of businesses or of people who thought they were islands didn't survive the pandemic. Yeah. Like I caught COVID, and I had to outsource a wedding to somebody else because I wasn't able to attend. Yeah. If I'd have been island, don't want to talk to anybody else in the industry, don't listen to me, I'm doing my thing. Yeah. I'd have had nobody to call on.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Where I knew that I had
a network.
I had 2 or 3 people that are really close to me, that I really trust, that I know I could have sent, and all of that. And so I didn't panic because I wasn't an island. And it doesn't mean that you have to constantly be watching what everybody else is doing around you and let them dictate who you are as a business. You can stay in your lane, but that's different to being unapproachable, an island. You're the guy at the wedding fair that refuses to talk to any of the other suppliers and stuff like that. It's like it's just
and it doesn't mean you've got to be friends with everyone either, or do what people are. Don't make a free reel for a supplier just because they've asked you to. It just means that like be there for the people that will help you, and try and form networks. And again, it doesn't have to be everyone. But these days, the main source of my bookings is through other suppliers, venues, photographers, and other videographers, some of which I haven't even met, but I've chatted to loads on Instagram or something and recommended me, and I'm recommending them. And that is not only great for the business, but also quite wholesome. It's quite nice to be like, oh yeah, got a couple from you the other day, like really like thank you and
we're all
appreciate
it.
And, exactly. And that community thing is becoming like we mentioned earlier in the podcast, a lot more common. I think there's now Facebook groups full of us, photographers in different areas, videographers, like UK wedding videographers. There's a huge Facebook page for people who help each other out, and I think all of that is quite nice.
Definitely, and I found that when I went to photography farm, there was people in the room. And Instagram does a funny thing with people, because people come in and go, oh, I know that person. I don't know them at all, never met them. And they might live in a different part of the world to me, because you see them on Instagram when their face pops up, you feel that you do know them. So you feel like you want to wander over to them and go, all right, mate. Exactly. You've got a dog and isn't that? And you're like, and people do it to me. Like a lady came up to me and was, I watched all of your Disney stories and this and that. And we had like a great talk about it. And that's the first time I'd met them. But I felt equally as warm to them as they did to me. And I made a connection there, and it might be in time. They go, oh, do you want to reach out about this? Like spreading your network, you don't have to be a look at me person and want to have your own podcast and offer network. It's just don't be a loner in your industry.
Because it is sort of industry as well, like you said, where people can help each other out with things and that as well. So.
And, all the things that we've talked about in kind of mindset and burnout and the rest of it, just to know that you're not the only person going through something sometimes can be a damn sight more comforting when you think that all your clients hate you and this is you're the only person that's ever had a bad complaint and stuff, problem shared and problem halved and all that. And
100%.
It's good.
So one of our last points then, you've put not having an ideal client for the first few years. I feel that this might be a normal thing, but what do you think is held you back?
It's hard because I'm not sure. I wouldn't say it's particularly a regret. Like I think when you start this industry, you need to take every job that comes along
Yeah.
for a degree of time, and still you start but learn quickly.
It's just as important to know what you don't like.
Yeah,
basically.
And I think we had a conversation in the car on the way here. It's like, don't let yourself get burnt twice.
Yeah.
Like if you go somewhere and it's awful, don't sign up for it again, or to sign up to make the same mistake again.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't stand there having only shot 2 weddings going, well, I only like black tie weddings that happen at country clubs and the people drink the finest champagne, because you might then go to a festival wedding where people drink cider out of a shoe, and that's far more fun to film than your black tie wedding.
And you might realise that,
I think for the first easily year or maybe 2 is do it, look at what you've done, and then slowly start to hone in.
Yeah.
Where I feel like for ages, again, it was just, I take photos at weddings. You're having a wedding? I'm in.
Yeah.
And it led me to maybe, again, not like we said with the second shooter thing, learning stuff the hard way, or going to weddings that not even as much I didn't enjoy, but they just weren't my people.
Yeah.
And they probably found that in this situation as awkward as it was for me, or they're going, well, why aren't you taking photos of this? Or why didn't you just do it this way? Because they probably deep down wanted somebody else. Or I wasn't projecting enough of that on my website to go, this is what I really want. Yeah. It was just a case of, well, these are weddings that I've done and pictures that I like. There was no kind of consideration or curation there.
It makes you, like, pre-pandemic I was the same, and it kind of makes you think, do I want to do this job because I'm shooting equally the amount of people that I'm not gelling with too much as the amount of people I am gelling with? And it's like, and it makes you like, because there is an element in this job of that whole, like, if you do have to get on with the couple in a particular way, whereas that's quite unique to our industry, isn't it? Whereas like most businesses, they don't have to get on with their clients.
Yeah, or I speak to loads of people that had 9-to-5 jobs, and they go, do you know what? I love the people that I work with, but I don't love my job.
Yeah,
and they go because they like the people.
Yeah,
where our job kind of, that's all linked so much. The way that the day is, because it's a reflection of themselves. If you like the people, the chances are you'll like the day.
Yeah,
and if you don't gel with the people, the chances are they might like things that you don't, so the day won't gel. And so that's
why this is a big mistake, because I think now at the stage we're at, 99%, if not 100% of the weddings I do, I'm like, they're my couple. I enjoyed that.
Well, like we said at the wedding that we shot the other day, because we lined up on so many things. Like, I remember on the couple shoot, we were walking back from the couple shoot, and like the groom was like, "Oh, we're off to the lakes next week for a honeymoon. Like, I'm taking my Bronica with me," and he has a medium format film camera. So we were talking about photography. So he had, like, maybe that was some of the reason that he trusted us, because he's seen our stuff and go, do you know what? Like, I kind of dabble a little bit, and this is that, or like, and we lined, on certain things.
It's just their vibe as well, and just the fact that they're like, they want those who are like, oh, I can't bother about photos, mate. I'm just going to stay inside, pissing it down outside. Do you know what I mean? Like,
like they were as amped. Like, we were sat, weren't we, having dinner? And we looked out, and we could see the warm light on the reflection of the building was like, it's time. And you were like sorting your camera out. I ran out to go into the dinner room to go and find the groom. He'd already got up, put his jacket on, and was coming to find us, because he'd seen the same patch of sun out the window and was like, we want that sunset. And they'd already said to us, pull us away from dessert. Like, our sticky toffee pudding's not as important as sunset. And so that the fact that we met in the middle of the room, that he'd come to find us, was literally,
nice to know that enthusiasm was there, basically, isn't it?
And again, because it all lined up, it wasn't like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to go and like creep up to them and tap on the back of the chair and go, if you want to go to the sunset, and it's like,
be bothered now.
I'm not leaving my dinner, type thing. So it does, kind of line up. And
it's the same with the next couple we're doing as well. Like with the, they were doing their speeches at dead on sunset time, and I was like, if you do want sunset photos, you are doing speeches at the time it's on, and instantly they sort of changed their minds and was like, we'll change the dinner around and we'll get out there, we both sort of spoke to each other before this and was like, they're really interested in sunset, aren't they? So
and again, for a job that I've jumped on fairly short notice, I think they've been really lovely, and they're definitely my people. They're a wedding I would have booked anyway, regardless of doing the nice thing. So I think that's it. You need to sometimes have a couple of those weddings that aren't on your vibe, so that you learn that they're not your vibe. But like, go into it with an open mind at the beginning, but don't spend too long doing those weddings if you're not enjoying them, and start to hone in, recognise what there isn't in them, and start to slowly filter yourself in.
Agreed. And just to finish it off then, so last point, I didn't want to spend too much time on this because we've just done an episode on education, but I do think that one of my biggest mistakes was not doing enough or not doing any education. So the film workshop I did in February, 7 to 9 years into my career was the first bit of education I've ever done. And like, I do like think if I'd have done that very same workshop like 7 years ago, I'd be so much better off than I am now. Again, like watching YouTube videos and behind the scenes, I think is quite diluted. Workshops are like the full double strength concentrate, whereas YouTube, you have to go through probably like hours and hours and hours of content just to learn what you'd learn from a day's workshop.
And again, I know that we're going to be the same in our workshop, is that I think when you're in a room and you know that you're not being recorded and you're very much delivering for the people that are sat in the room with you, there's almost like an atmosphere in the room. And I know that like the knowledge that I'll give away there, if I was being recorded, or even to a degree on this sometime, I'm like, well, I can't give away everything.
Yeah, because you
naturally can't. You got to say something for your own business, or for that next thing. But I know once you get someone in front of you, they ask questions, I'll answer as honestly as I can. And I think we're more than open in the things that we talk about on here. But there's still that element of like, we can't cover everything.
I've spent
Otherwise,
so much time figuring
this
out.
These would be 3 and 4 hour episodes. So there'd always be that element of you can't give everything. And it's nice to kind of say that kind of mindset of when you make that effort to drive to that workshop, get the train to that workshop, that you sit there, you're in the right mindset to learn. You're not trying to edit whilst you've got a podcast on in the background telling you something. You're there solely to absorb that knowledge,
taking notes, and from someone who's delivering the workshop there, you've often paid to be there, so they're sort of giving you the work. Like it's like that trust room, isn't it? Of
exactly
like,
that, And even like and hopefully there's people that I do it to podcasts, is I listen to, when people have guests on, they go, oh, I wish they'd asked them that. Or you listen to a YouTube video and go, oh, well, I was waiting for them to get to that bit and they didn't. Where if you're in a room with someone, as long as you're brave enough to stick your hand up or walk up to them at the end and go, I just really want to ask you this. Like, and you get that answer.
And that often ends up being the thing that
and that could be that the biggest light bulb moment, or the kind of thing that's been niggling away in your business, and they've just detangled it in front of you and made it feel like nothing, and you're like, oh, why did I lose so much sleep over that?
I remember the workshop we went to, and I sort of asked the question, and I was like, I need to ask this question and make sure. I was like, don't you do that? Oh, okay, that's interesting. I'm gonna have a think about that.
And whatever the answer is, you still win. Because if it's something you already do, you go, great, I am doing something right after all. I thought that, but I didn't. I thought I was the only person that did it. No, I am on the right. That is. Or the answer is as easy as I think it is. Because you almost sometimes, because I do it, I overthink and go, well, it can't just be as easy as that. Why am I making this a big deal when that's the answer? But then when someone that you watch and respect go, oh, it is literally as easy as that. You're like, oh.
That makes makes so much sense.
So you either get a knowledge bomb, which changes the way you work, or you get reaffirmed and go, oh yeah, I am doing the right thing. Go me.
And that's why these like actual education workshops and things are so much more important. But again, we've spoken about it before in a couple of episodes ago. But that I wanted to mention that because I do recommend, if you're starting up, go into a few workshops. And
so many of the things that we've said are all linked in as well, because you might go to a workshop and sit next to somebody at a workshop, and then if you've made a personal connection on the day, when they turn around and go, oh, I'm actually really needing a second shooter for that job, they might ring you and go, oh, you were really fun on that day to hang out with. Like, do you want to come shoot this with me? And then that grows your network, and then you lead on to that. And I was sat next to people at workshops who, at the time that I went, were so much more experienced than me. Or like, you sit next to somebody who are a stranger. Like, I remember going to a workshop and them saying, and it was about Instagram. Obviously, Instagram was kind of on the way up, and it was like, we need to all increase our networks. Like, open your Instagram app now, and then swap phones with the person next to you, and then make sure you follow them. And the girl next to me, like, she seemed like really quiet and really young, and I was like, I had no idea about her business. She just handed me her phone. She had like 12,500 followers and was like in like a top 50 list when I was on like 3 years in, and was like, wow, like I'd never expected that just by looking at judging someone purely on the way that they were, because she was really quiet and not really saying very much. And I was like, well, you've got as much of a following, and your work's as good as the people that are speaking. You're just still sat next to me with your little notebook. And it kind of really was like, oh wow. Like, and
I guess that proves it's never too late to learn as well, and that's why like a few 7 to 9. I think I did my first one in 2015, but I went full time 2017. That many years into my business, going to a workshop and learning as much as I did, it's still like, I recommend them, and that's why you should get tickets to ours.
Definitely,
at least have a look if branding, marketing, and that kind of thing is something that you're looking at doing. And getting better at. I know that we speak about it a lot off camera, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do with that. So that was sort of a good place to link that to the education side of things. Like whether you do ours or whether you do others, like just try and get yourself to someone who is more experienced.
The whole episode's not a sales ploy that you buy tickets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, this feels like
you can hear the excitement in our voices that I'm really excited to make the slides for this. Get some people in the room and hopefully just help people make changes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like almost give back to those education things that we've been to, not helping people, like watch people not make the mistakes that we did so that they don't end up being 7 to 9 years into their business before they go to their first workshop, pick up their first, second shooting gig, or sit there at night kind of banging their head against the wall going, why didn't someone tell me this 5 years ago?
Yeah. No, 100%. And so I hope this episode has been helpful in just allowing you to avoid the things the mistakes that we made, and hopefully like propel your career in a way that is quicker. Because if you do learn from people who have made mistakes or who in hindsight would have done other things, I feel like that allows your journey to be smoother. And for that way you can sort of increase your prices quicker, get in your target market quicker,
and just be happier.
And generally be happier.
And also, if you're,
this is the thing, isn't it? I'm thinking business, you're thinking happy.
And if you're sat there and you do any of these things, like it doesn't make you a bad person. We've all made these mistakes, but just don't choose that as your hill to die on and carry on doing that way. Like this is us telling you to look at what you're doing.
It's all still our opinion,
and don't be afraid to make those changes.
Yeah. It's all our opinion and it's all hindsight. But I feel like it's been really useful to speak about.
But at the end of the day, and again, there's people that have been in this industry twice, 3 times, 4 times as much as we have. And there's people that have been in a lot less. So we're only standing here with the experience that we've got, telling you the things that we wish we'd done
already.
And if I could sit there and talk to 21-year-old Tom who was still at his job going, I really want to be a full-time photographer. And I'd heard this, I think it would have reassured me that, okay, don't jump too soon. But jump with a plan. But maybe go and find some second shooting on one of those days off rather than try and book another wedding that's not your vibe. And maybe it would have be different.
Amazing. Good place to end it. It's been a bit of a long episode, but we're only recording one today, so I'm happy that we've gone on a bit and done a bit of a longer one. I had this morning.
I
just cracked a Red Bull just before this, and I'm feeling buzzing.
It's good though. Like normally the second, if we do a second afternoon episode, we're normally kind of dying a little bit.
A little bit knackered.
So yes.
Yeah, you got the best of us this episode. So
the link will be out soon. Buy tickets to the workshop, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.